All right.
We're doing it live. What?
I don't know if no, we're still connecting. Well, General Asmundus, big fan of your work. Hey, we are live. We're doing live, David. We're doing live. What's up, boys and girls? Welcome, folks, to Amped Up with Cliff Schecter. I'm Cliff Schecter. That's David Schuster, the Emmy-winning, more talented one of the two of us who holds it together. And we're going to have a number of things to talk about today.
Oh, what a day. Oh, my God.
There's a lot going on. Let's start with, we're going to have, I would call him Avatar of the Working Class, Tony Michaels on, which I'm very excited about because Tony is a Democrat who can speak to working issues in a way few Democrats can. We have another one of those in Frederick Pogue as a member of our team, but there aren't that many. And because we've become a different kind of party and we're trying to like expand that back to where we used to be, which is really should be easy for us at this point, considering they've fucked everything up, that we should be able to appeal to everyone across the board. Let me give you an example, David. I'm going to go on a rant. I'm going to, for my kids.
Okay.
You sons of bitches, Donald Trump, you piss cotton candy haired, flabby motherfucker who can't play golf and kicks the ball ahead like 4,000 feet every time in seats. You also eat too much chocolate. Well, that's going to cost you more now. Of course it won't, because you'll use our taxpayer money like you do to bail out Argentina and all the other little scams you do. But according to the inflation here, we're now looking at prices 45% higher than the previous decade and 10.8% higher, 11% up in 1 year. You son of a bitch. I want my Hershey bar. I didn't want to think about it if I wanted to get Cadbury. At this point, that probably costs like $125 a bar. You're screwing us on candy. It's Halloween. You're like Freddy, except for he's more handsome. Seriously, it's unbelievable. Think of how many, I'm kidding in a way with my kids and whatever, but think about how many families are going to go out and going to do what you normally do on Halloween. You're going to go and you need to buy the big bowl. You got to leave it outside next to the skeleton and the other stuff you put up. So when people come by, it's like one of those moments where we actually, over this weird sort of agricultural tradition, come together as a country and go out and people come and knock on your door and you don't actually just stand your ground, pull out your gun and shoot them. But you're Americans, for those out there, it's a dicey proposition. But now, you used to be one guy that would be like, would say to us, thank you for joining the party. Or I don't remember what his phrase was, when he handed out mini bottles of bourbon to the parents because it was always so cold that night. Well, here we go. Everybody's going out and now 10%, 15%, I think on chocolate's the worst, but there's some other ones. This is insane. So let me see, 22% since last year. Milky Way, M&M's, Three Musketeers, and Skittles, all owned by Mars. Those are all up 22%. You son of a bitch, Trump.
Well, and even coffee, apparently. Coffee is up by double digits, and beef, of course, is up. And what sort of gets me is there was Donald Trump speaking to the troops, I think at an aircraft carrier in Japan, and Donald Trump said, we have defeated inflation. And it's like, what? I mean, that's like and he keeps going back to this. And he keeps going back to that lie about inflation. And he also keeps saying, the tariffs have generated $20 trillion in investment in the United States, even though that our annual GDP is $30 trillion. And economists who are friendly to Trump say, well, actually, the amount of tariff money he's bringing in is $350 billion, which, if my math is correct, is 1/70th of what Donald Trump is. So the lies are like preposterous and they're just getting sillier and crazier. And if he's willing to lie about something that obvious, of course he's going to lie about everything else.
Everything, right. We just got hit for the first time. For my younger son's birthday, decided he's an enormous soccer fan, football, as some of you watching would call it. So he's a big fan of the Italian team, bought him a jersey. And guess what? We got smacked with a nice letter which was like, here's your 20% tariff on top of the jersey. Again, is that that's a luxury item? We were able to not luxury, but we were able to afford that. We don't need it to live. But for people that let's say need to import machinery from a place like Italy for whatever their company is, or various other resources or whatever, you're screwed. And for no reason whatsoever, except for what? Maybe they also had an ad with Reagan in it insulting Trump. We go ahead, David.
Well, and to that, I mean, you mentioned the ad with Reagan. I mean, Donald Trump was so angry about that ad that was aired by the province of Ontario during the World Series that he decided, just because he didn't like the ad, because they quoted Ronald Reagan decrying tariffs, Donald Trump decided, okay, I'm going to add another 10% tariffs to Canada over an ad, over something Donald Trump didn't like on television. I mean, that's how insane and sensitive this guy is. And
Well,
we started by talking about chocolate, and there, some conservatives will say, oh, well, you can just buy more chocolate that is made in the United States. Listen, stupid idiots. Chocolate, whether it's Hershey's or whether it's some of these, the almond bar, they still have inputs that come from
the cocoa beans.
outside of the United States. And those cocoa beans are more expensive. And so the candy is more expensive. It's not just, you can't just solve this by saying, oh, I'm going to go buy an American chocolate bar. It doesn't work that way.
And they don't get it. Hey, assholes, take a drive to this place called Pennsylvania. You'll see something called Hershey. Yeah, it's here in the United States. But as David just said, parts come from outside. It's a crazy world that way. Those globalists, are making sure. But so, I mean, again, flat out lies. And my biggest issue here is this whole rigged system. It is. And I never wanted to use that phrase before because it sort of sounds like Trump in some way, but they have rigged our system. Garland Gilchrist, who we had on, it's a terrific guest, Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, hopefully next Governor of Michigan, was talking about the other day. Because, again, there's no purpose to this except for to do this to hurt us, and they know that it isn't going to affect their billionaire buddies. They're the ones who end up collecting from a lot of the suffering that we do when our farms shut down. Guess who gets to buy that farmland on the cheap? I'm sure they're having parties over a big agribusiness. I mean, so all this stuff for this chocolate, like we get taxed, we get screwed, nobody gains anything, and it is all a rigged system against us to screw us. And there's that because the Supreme Court is allowing him, if not outright, like giving him a tushy push to do it, which I could see Clarence Thomas doing. He did Long Dong Silver or whatever it was he used to watch. And so, to do this, so the Supreme Court's in there, yeah, President stole the tariff power from Congress, cool. Mike Johnson's busy monitoring his son's porn and up on various sites, Grownder, or what's it called? I can't remember anymore. Grasser. Oh, Grownder, that's it, right. I just couldn't remember what. I don't know. This is what people are saying. But I mean, like they have no oversight whatsoever. So essentially, he's doing all of these things that are illegal, like tearing down the East Wing or whatever, and can just do it because they don't care. They won't stop him. And next time, assuming that there's a Democratic president again, we have actual elections and those things, you can bet that they'll be right on the case. Those geniuses, Comer and Jordan and all of them going after, the son of the president or vice president and showing his penis in one of their, they're just so despicable. It's just, and if people would do their jobs, if corporate media would do their job, if Democrats, and we're going to talk to Tony, who knows how to hit back hard, and we talked to Garland Gilchrist, Lieutenant Governor, who hits back hard, and our friend Fred Wellman, who's running for Congress, who hits back hard, and it's becoming contagious. We knew it would in the Democratic Party to fight these bastards and to stop bowing down to them. But we need more. I'm talking to you, Democratic leadership in Washington, because that they can get away with this. That Trump basically is a dictator right now.
Right. And I love the comment that one of the lawmakers, and I think as a member of the Senate, said, this stuff can come around. I mean, you made the point about a Democratic president. Well, imagine if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez decides that she wants to sort of do whatever she wants to do, and she can't be confined by laws because of the Supreme Court. Imagine what she might want to do. And can you imagine how crazy the Republicans would go if President AOC decided, you know what? He tore down the East Wing. I'm going to tear down the West Wing and turn it into something really fab.
Or like every Trump statue that's been put up somewhere, I don't know how yet. Like, don't we control Hollywood? How is his stupid star still there? How has somebody not gone out with a jackhammer and taken that? I mean, but anything with his name on it should be torn down. You want my vote? Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, if you promise me that you will go out right away and in a dictatorial way without asking anybody destroy, make sure people are clear so they don't get hurt, but blow up everything with Trump on it, you have my vote right now.
Including blow up the ball.
Oh, ballroom, absolutely.
Invite all of us to bring our own hammers and our own crowbars, and let each of us the weekend after inauguration go and tear it down.
Right. As you know, I mean, as I said, BYOB, bring your own bulldozer. Just take that sucker down. Hey, it's 2:10. We got Tony coming on. We're going to talk about these cruel. I mean, we're laughing, but these sons of bitches who are about to starve. Starve is the word here. 22 million kids who rely on SNAP. 40 million Americans, because and as Karen Levitt said, his main priority is his ballroom. He's giving $40 million to or $1 billion to Argentina, but we can't feed children here because he doesn't want to, because he's evil and he hates them.
And that's the other part. The money's already there. It's already been funded. And in fact, the Department of Agriculture and other agencies had contingency plans of how they would keep the SNAP benefits going in case of a government shutdown. But the Republicans and the Trump administration have just decided, no. We're just not going to activate those plans. If there's a government shutdown, there's no SNAP benefits, even though the people who issue the SNAP benefits plan for this contingency. The money is there. You don't have to starve 40 million people unless you want to, which is what the Republicans want to do.
No, he gets a kick out of it. You've seen it before when he gets excited when he sees violence. I mean, he's sick is what he is. And I don't know how so many people were not able to take a simple look and see that and go, hey, he is a crazy person, and maybe not putting him back in power would be a good thing.
By the way, did I see Ellie Leonard? Did she just join us?
Ellie's in there. That's right. Ellie,
who's doing some great work.
Oh my God, she's exposing all the Epstein stuff. She's doing fantastic work.
Yeah,
he's a rapist. That is correct. He is a rapist too. He is a rapist, and we'll probably find out allegedly that he's a pedophile, and he's also been convicted of 30 whatever counts of 32, 34. I always forget. Doesn't really matter. He's a criminal. And before I introduce Tony, last thing I'll say is, of course, the Jack Smith stuff dropped, and we now know that he paid for a bunch of those folks to come to DC. That was the case that Jack Smith had against him. But thanks, Merrick. That was good to wait a year and a half. That was helpful. Hey, Tony, how are you?
Tony,
I'm doing good. Considering.
Well, you're not relying on SNAP, right? And neither are the two of us. So we're all lucky that is not a program we rely upon. But I mean, I wonder, we're going to talk here about some things that can be done. But I really would love it if somebody, because anybody who knows me, and you two know me, know that organization is really not my thing. Talking is kind of more, and writing. If somebody who's organized could organize a way that we could get food to the people that need it, I would love to take part in that. But there's other ways, of course, we can do it, and we'll talk to Tony about that. So go ahead, David.
I was going to say, Tony, for people who don't know Tony Michaels, and you should know Tony Michaels, and he's got the Kaufman Chronicles, and he's doing some great stuff on YouTube and Substack. Tony is in the heartland of the United States.
Correct.
And he's got his finger to the pulse of what people are thinking about out there, and out in, Missouri and everywhere else. Tony, what are you picking up? Is the news that SNAP benefits are being cut off on November the 1st, is that breaking through?
Yeah, I think it is. I was in the grocery store the other day, and I made a video about it and put it out on social media. And I never went into the grocery store and saw so many people have such look of fear and depression on their faces. Usually going to the grocery store is fun. Like, you're going to get food, what you're going to eat. I mean, and that's what this comes down to, because I think we miss something, and we sterilize things a lot in our politics. I think we should stop calling it SNAP. I think we should call it the food bill. It used to be the farm bill, and we in our minds, because most people don't understand that the USDA, right? It's the Department of Agriculture who administers the food stamp program, because it is food which is grown by farmers, right? There's such a disconnect in our system, because we see a lot of people online demonizing people who would use SNAP benefits. And I'm like, okay, number one, 20 million of these SNAP recipients our children. So I don't know if like we're like, hey, go get you a job, 3-year-old. Like I don't understand that. So that's kind of a disconnect. But the other disconnect that we have is that we're not really understanding what is at stake, right? You guys are talking about Halloween candy. Guys, there are going to be people tomorrow night who are going to take their kids to Halloween, and they're going to try to get as much candy as possible because they're going to be eating they're going to be eating bite-sized Snickers for dinner because they're scared that their damn food stamps are going to run out. And I'm so tired of calling it SNAP. It's food stamps. It's for food. And I want to tell you, I was trying to find this figure the other day.
By the way, can I just say quickly though, it is such a smart point. And again, it drives me crazy with, this may not be, there are things I blame Democrats for messaging about. This program was different because I don't think we ever expected that we would have such a absolute cruel, corrupt tyrant in office who would want to starve people on purpose. And so we didn't feel a need to have a message that would resonate, but quite clearly we do now.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. SNAP does not get to it. We need something that, an acronym, whatever it might be, 4 or 5 letters that explains what it is, we're talking about here.
I think we can actually call it the food bill. For years and years and years, this was called the farm bill. This is the food stamp, the program that provides food for people to buy at grocery stores. And that's the end. That's the end part of the farm bill. The front of the farm bill is farmers raising beef, pork, chicken, other poultry, turkey, corn, soybean. Row crop. This is food, and it should be called the food bill. And you should go get your food stamps from the food bill. This is food. Okay. And when we sterilize things and we use this language and acronyms, I think we do ourselves a disservice because it allows people to demonize the people who are receiving the SNAP benefits. Well, farmers are receiving government funded insurance through the USDA to fund their crops, to ensure their beef, to ensure their livestock. Not to mention the tariffs is tearing that sector apart. And we have such a disconnect that we can't even get people to understand the plight that the farmers are feeling is going to be the plight that the people who are not receiving their food stamps on Saturday are going to feel. It's the same plight. We're all connected. And that's the thing that is most infuriating in the chaos that we have, because I've been talking a lot about a political realignment. And I think this SNAP benefit thing kind of shows that realignment happening in real time and gives good examples of that. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene.
There's a realignment the only realignment I thought might ever happen there is she might think the Jewish lasers are pointing in a different direction than they had been before. And now she's making more sense than actually some Democrats, which is insane.
She at some points, the things that she says, but more importantly, how she says them is probably a better way to message it than what Democrats are doing. Some Democrats are doing. This is a person who wore a MAGA hat, who went to the rallies and said mass deportation. Now, what she's kind of against now, because I don't know, like labor and farms and the economy. But she is taking turns. And the reason why she's taking turns isn't because she's all of a sudden against Trump, because I don't think that's really what's happening. I think what she has discovered through her phone calls and her communication that she's getting from her constituents, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fundraiser. From almost the moment she entered the political scene, she was one of their biggest fundraisers for MAGA. And there's one thing that a fundraiser pays attention to, and that's data. Like, that's what they focus in on, is data. And when Marjorie Taylor Greene says this many people are calling about this many people are calling me about this, I think she knows every single person. And some people say, well, I can't trust her, she's just doing this to get elected. Folks, that's what we want them to do. We want our politicians and our representatives to represent us. That's what we want.
Why they're doing it in the end, it's great, I think, and I'll kick it to you, David, but I think your point is exactly right on, Tony. I mean, like, it's nice to know that people are doing things for the right reasons. It's nice to know that you actually have some decent, kind-hearted people in there. But in the end, all that matters is that they do it, not why they do it. I mean, obviously, that they do it voluntarily. I'm not talking about with a gun to their head. I'm just saying, in a democratic system, that they feel enough pressure to do it. That's all that matters. Go ahead with David.
Well, I was going to say, and even if you want to take the Republicans at where their bread and butter is, and that it's purely economic issues, they only care about the economy, they only care about business. Even if you separate out the cruelty of denying people food benefits, it's something like 8 to 10% of these rural grocery stores, their business comes from food stamps. And when you're looking at grocery stores that have a margin of, I think it's like 1.9%, every one of these grocery stores starts losing money this week when the food stamps are not there. And how long can some of these grocery stores go where they're losing money before they start to shut down? You would think that purely on a business perspective, on an economic perspective, Republicans would say, oh my God, we can't do this because all these grocery stores are going to go belly up if we do. And we can't afford to lose the jobs. We can't afford to lose the grocery stores, all the infrastructure, everything that's associated with this is going to ripple through the agriculture sector, the food sector, the U.S. economy. That's a big mistake. But they don't even see that.
Well, they don't care anymore, I don't think. Go ahead.
I was going to make the point that every dollar, because I was looking for this figure the other day to try to close that disconnect, because I think that's the thing we're all struggling with is we're all connected, and this idea of SNAP and the farmers and the tariffs, this is the thing. Like, if there's a Venn diagram, this is where we measure up the most, right? And out of every single dollar, because I know there's economic stimulus, like I think it's $1.80 or for every dollar it's spent, it creates $1.80 of economic stimulus. But I think you can pare it down even more to help that disconnect. Every single dollar that is spent on SNAP, I believe it's 23 cents of those dollars go into American farmers' pockets. Okay. So if we're talking like America first, right? Now the rest of that dollar, so 23.
So they're finding, even after everything else, the deportation, the tariffs, all the other ways they've screwed our farmers over, they're finding yet another way.
Right.
I mean, if we're not messaging the farmers right now, any Democrats listening, we're fucking doing it wrong. We really are.
I also want to tell anyone who's listening who thinks that the FAFO is for the farmers, because a lot of people are like, fuck the farmers. They voted for this and that sort of thing. Yeah, but you're missing the FAFO that matters the most. If you really want to get to the real FAFO, you join in with the farmers and give Trump and the MAGA GOP Republicans in the Senate and the Congress that are standing aside and letting him run roughshod over our power, over our Congress, and our Article 1 power with his Article 2 power, and him wanting to be a dictator and wanting to consolidate executive power, which I think the country is becoming more and more against. That's myself for this real.
We're going to hear something about this. I feel like I've heard you talk about this once or twice, Tony.
Once or twice, yes. But here's the thing, is that I believe the FAFO is for them, and we can join farmers in this moment to give them the FAFO. Who do we want to have the FAFO more? The people who voted for Trump, or the people give them the off-ramp, they join us, and we give them all the FAFO. And we give them all the FAFO where we all align, not on culture. We're never going to agree on culture. I don't know why we do this in America, where we think we're always going to agree on culture. We're never going to do that. We're never going to. But we can agree on class and economics. We can agree there. That's where our coalitions are built. And I got to tell you, with the realignment, I just released, as soon as you guys went live, I released a video on Substack and on YouTube. You guys can go look at it. It's kind of a simple explainer of what I mean by the realignment, because I've been getting a lot of questions about it, because I've been talking about it. It's a theory that I have that it's pretty natural in politics to have realignments. Our last realignment was probably the civil rights era. That's where everyone would look to. And it was a really long, drawn-out realignment. It really kind of ended with Ronald Reagan's presidency and the switch of the parties. They say, oh, the Reagan Democrats, well, I don't think they were really Reagan Democrats. I just think that was more of that shift that was happening. And I believe we're in a shift now, and I think our time period, with as fast as information moves, we think everything should shift fast.
Mhm.
Society does not change rapidly. Governments do not change rapidly. They don't.
Or if they do, it's not. It's a bad thing if governments change very rapidly. Quite honestly,
It's a slow turning, grinding gear, right? And we want it to be a slow turning, grinding gear. But in today's society, everything's so fast that we want it to happen now. But I think 9/11 is the point. That's where I can point to. And it's not the events that happened that started this, what I would call the great realignment of power. But I think really that's our reaction to it, is where it started. And our reaction was, oh my God, we're scared. We're fearful. These people can just fly our planes from our airports into buildings and kill thousands of people. We were terrified. And I
right.
mean, it was
But to be honest, Tony, David and I were two of the Jews that got those calls from Israel that warned us ahead of time, so we were able to get out of the building. So, we did have an advantage over other people. I think we should all admit.
I mean, there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there about the events, but
I'm sorry, I take everything you're saying seriously, but you also know I have to lighten it up here and there because I'm an idiot. Go ahead.
But our reaction, where we basically said we need to trust the president to make decisions for all of us at a moment's notice to keep us safe, and Bush did it with executive power. Obama used it for different reasons, right? He used executive power. I can point to one thing that I think is the good thing that Obama did with executive power, which is DACA. I don't think it's the right way now. Like, hindsight is 2020 always. Trump abused it, right? Biden kept it in place. He had to undo some.
He did a number of executive orders, and I'll speak as someone who's been focused on the gun issue. When they refused it, they finally passed a bill that actually closed 2 loopholes, and the first time in 30 years did something, not nearly enough. But he did a bunch of other things via executive order. And again, I'm glad he did. I'm glad they did with DACA, but I can also, that Obama did, but I can agree with you that that's not the way we should be doing it. We're doing that because our government is not functioning in the manner in which it's supposed to function, which is to actually work.
Well, so we are. I got my Constitution here, but we are living under Article 2 America now, and Trump is really giving us a stress test of this, and I believe that's what this is. And I think the Mamdani running in New York is part of this process. Graham Plattner in Maine, they want to make a big deal out of his race. I think that's part of this process, because I think America is really looking for who we are. Who are we? Who are we after 9/11? I mean, we were at war with Afghanistan for 20 years over that thing, and most people didn't even know the war ended. A lot of people didn't even know the war was still going on.
I don't think they knew. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, again, those were sort of some of the first, maybe the first wars. Because even Vietnam, I'm trying to think. I mean, I wasn't alive for most of it. And I was a little, I was 2 or 3, right? So I've studied history. I'm not sure in what ways it was affecting domestic industry in this, and sacrifices being made. So maybe that was the first one but even more so, like, life just went on like normal when we were in Iraq, which we lied our way into and was a war crime in every sense of it. I'm talking about the second time. And Afghanistan, where it was just like, we're just staying forever, I guess. And it just got to a point where I don't think most people knew what was even going on. Because you didn't have to sacrifice anything, right? Like, it wasn't like World War II. You couldn't get a car because they were making tanks. You couldn't travel. I'm sure you might run into the Lufthansa. But point being, like, nobody sacrificed anything. I mean, except for our volunteer military.
Well, and I guess that's sort of my point here, is that when this economy really strains itself, and when our national security is at risk because our food security is at risk, I think that's going to start to change people's minds of what is actually happening. Because Trump is a problem. Okay, that Trump is a problem. He is not the problem. Because really, honestly, if we had a strong Article 1 and we had strong Article 1 power in this moment, none of these tariffs would have probably taken effect. As soon as he got out and said, I'm going to do this thing, a real Congress who knew how we were going to feel about this in the long run would have said, no, you're not. No, you're not, because that's not what the Constitution says, you little bitch. Like, that's not how this is going to work. We are the supremacy power in the Constitution. That's why it's the Article 1 power, which is supremacy. And I think the more Americans get back to the thinking that our power in the Constitution is through representation. The president, the executive, Article 2 is our servant in that they serve what Congress legislates through us. And the judiciary is just the referee. That's all they are. They're nothing more than the referee. And if we get back to that mindset and we really start to engage in discourse, but to do the fast things in country change, which is elections, which I'll say, I think elections, we don't actually see the effects of till about 4 or 5 years later, but we think we see them immediately because we kind of feel them immediately, but we don't actually see, we're not going to see the effects of Trump.
I think, Tony, I don't interrupt you, but I think David's got a question he wants to jump in.
I'm going to take a little bit of issue. My sense, and maybe I'm a little bit more pessimistic on all of this, is that most Americans are tuned out, that most Americans are fine to have all the decisions made by the executive branch, by a powerful president, as long as those decisions help with our prosperity and our health and our economy. Where I think people start to be more wanting lawmakers to be more responsive is when things are starting to go wrong. And so that's where I see, I mean, lawmakers, they know Donald Trump's approval ratings at 37, 38%. They suspect that there's something there in the Epstein files. And the polling shows that most Americans do not trust Donald Trump on the economy. They don't trust Donald Trump on the Epstein files. And as a result, members of Congress are moving towards, wait a second, we're not going to walk off the cliff with him in his next midterm election because his numbers are so bad. And to Marjorie Greene's point, I think that, I think there was I think it was Eric Swalwell who was saying that there's going to be, it's like a jailbreak of Republicans. Once there's finally this vote, there's going to be over 120 Republicans that are going to join Democrats in passing this bill in the House that says there should be a release of the Epstein files. And then it goes to the Senate. But I think it's because Republicans want to cover their own ass. They don't want to look like they were somehow defending or protecting Donald Trump if it turns out that there are these pictures of him with half-naked teenage girls.
And yet they've been complicit this whole time in every other single thing he's done, including the knowledge that there's a good chance that he's in these pictures with half-naked girls. But we know that he would go into pageants, and producers knew that was Donald Trump time and would leave when he would sit there and spy on teenage girls changing. We've seen his behavior with his own daughter. Like, these are things where there aren't real questions about what his character is. We just don't know the specifics of the Epstein files, but we do know the specifics of Ellie Leonard. I could give a TED talk. We're going to have you on to give that TED talk about this, Ellie. Ellie knows all this stuff. But I mean, we do know the specifics of his being convicted of the crime he was convicted of. We do know the specifics of adjudicated rapist. We do know the specifics of nearly 30 women charging him with sexual assault.
And we also know the specifics of what's happening to the economy. That Donald Trump can fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and not report any numbers.
Ellie knows them.
But people can see, as we started the show, Cliff, people can see prices rising. People can see food stamps being cut, and that freaks out people. And I think what it does is it almost sort of shocks the system, and that it shocks the system to such an extent that instead of, I'm just fine with the President of the United States making all the decisions and having all this power, but once things start to go haywire, then people say, what can we do? What can be done? And I think that's where lawmakers in Congress start to reclaim their own authority.
So I'll give you one better. I think you're making a great case for my realignment theory, and the reason why I say that is because the one thing that we're waiting on, okay, and that's why I said the Mamdani race is part of this process that we're going through, because it's a natural process. Because we don't just all get in a room and be like, "Hey, we're going to all change our minds now." That's not what we do. The Democratic Party and liberals and the left in general have been for executive power. Now, and I believe what the thought process is when Trump leaves, we will elect someone and they will go in with executive orders and change it. And that's wrong. That's wrong. I think that's wrong thinking. I think that's going to put us in a worse position than we were. And I don't think Americans are going to buy that. I don't think Americans are going to buy the dictator of the other side.
Can I say this, though, for a second? That in and of itself won't be necessary if we address what the American people are clearly, not in just every poll and every interview and every protest in every way you can imagine and see, And again, from Plattner up in Maine, who's still doing well, even with what's happened recently, to numerous other sort of those kinds of candidates around the country, like we're clamoring for people to step forward who will address the fact that this economy and this democracy are not working for most people. And they're not because they've been confiscated, literally torn out of our pockets, our money and our rights, by a group of creepy fucking billionaires, all of whom surround Donald Trump. Weirdos that get like tech implants and have $50 million second fucking weddings, and some weirdo guy that's sweaty all the time, Peter Thiel, who wants to live till he's like 200 years old. God help every creature around during that time. And Elon Musk, who I don't even need to, I mean, do I need to even do I need to say anything? But that's fucking weird. I mean, these are tech bro fascists who've joined with, their extremist right-wing Christian fascist friends and support Trump to take all this away from us. So we know what the vast majority of American people want. It's right there. Will we support the candidates who will do it? Or are we going to support these safe little candidates who will say, oh, well, no, I'll change things a little bit. Let's try to go back to before Trump, as if that was working for anybody. We'll give some more subsidies and some more tax credits instead of systemic change of the kind where vast new institutions that work at our democratic institutions, small d, are created. Others are absolutely reformed and improved. Supreme Court comes to mind, and that kind of thing. And if David doesn't choke, I think he can respond to this. Are you okay over there, David? You good?
I got a little bit of a cold and a flu from the
kids. Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
That's just, it's not just how it is. All good. Keep going.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say that let's put it in perspective of how people in America perceive power, because that's the most important thing here is your perception of power and our perception as a society of power. And I think that's what the chaos is. I think that's what our worry is. Like, we're like, how does this get fixed? What do we do? What do I do? What do we do as communities? What do we do as a party? What do we do as liberals or conservative? What do we do? Well, we're doing it. We are doing it. And I think if you look at the two races that we were talking about earlier, Mamdani in New York, which he's running for an executive. Mm-hmm. It's an executive, right? That's an executive position. And the Democratic Party, including Bernie Sanders, by the way, is behind him, right? Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Graham Plattner, who Bernie Sanders is behind him, right? And I don't think that's significant other than to make the point to people out there who would like Bernie Sanders. But Graham Plattner isn't running for an executive position. He's running for the United States Senate. He's running for a position that is in Article 1. So it is a different kind of position. And I believe those two races, not to say who's supposed to win and why they're supposed to win or why people support them, leave the ideology out of it, right? If you leave that out of the race and you really look at what is happening in the forces of that body politic, right? And those forces are that people want a certain thing and a certain type of power. And I believe that if we the people, not we the Democrats or we the liberals, I'm talking about America as a whole, if we choose strong executive power, we are going to continue this pendulum swing, right? And it's just going to keep the chaos. It's just going to keep it going. But if we choose something different, if we choose to make sure that our representatives represent us in Congress, us in our state houses, us in our county commissions, us in our city councils, not the mayors, not the governors, not the president, right? Those are our servants to our legislative bodies. If we really look at it that way and we start to view our country and our governments in that way, we are going to receive outcomes that look like us. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean our country will be more centrist? I mean, I guess it will if we are a centrist country, right? If we're more right of center or left of center, if we allow Article 1 power to really be the supremacy, that will show its way through.
Well, can I say quickly, it's all how you define things, and that's up to in the eye of the beholder to a certain degree. But the vast majority of things that I know the three of us sitting here are strongly in favor of have, at this point, 70% plus approval ratings. And some of them Like, I can literally name two things. I've done this before: universal background checks on guns and paid family medical leave hit 90%. That's when you know your democracy is failing you. When you've got two things that hit 90%. But that connects into also what I'm saying here, which is, if we have the kinds of candidates running the kinds of campaigns, and we've talked to some of these folks, I mentioned them earlier, we had Garland Gilchrist on yesterday, Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, who's talking about clicking on the billionaires and that kind of thing. If we take on the people that are causing there to be such executive power, because they are robbing us of everything and they're working with an executive to do it, if we elect the kind of wave in Congress, state legislatures, these places, then this, honestly, to a large degree, will help take care of itself, because we will have the power to pass the programs we need to pass. And then if we have the boldness to step forward and say, and that report that was just released by the Roosevelt Institute that showed, and I always disclose I wrote ads for Joe Biden in 2020, but it was very sort of, it said that Joe Biden did some very great things legislatively, whatever, but they were too timid when it came to stepping up on labor and speaking out on how they were challenging corporations. They didn't even want to publicize it because they didn't want to name specific corporations. This kind of bullshit needs to go away, and we need to be willing to stand up and name who the bad guys are, right? Invite their hatred, as FDR said. Fight for regular people, and then executives will, to a certain degree, we have to pass those laws. But if we democratize those institutions, executives will lose some power naturally. Go ahead, David.
You hit right on, I think, Cliff, why Mamdani is doing so well in New York, because Mamdani, the key issue we hear from younger voters, his primary base is economic fairness. They want, rents to be lower. They want to be able to make sure that New York is livable in all of the boroughs for people who are on a middle class wage. The only person who has spoken directly about that, and I think most energetically, has been Mamdani. I mean, all this stuff about, he supports Hamas and he doesn't like Israel. People don't care about that in New York. The voters care about economic fairness. And to me, when you have, and you can take it beyond New York, you take it all across the United States, when you have younger people who are out of college, who are looking at not being able to afford to buy their parents' homes, even when they're 40 years old, there's something seriously flawed that even they can recognize about our economy, that there's the haves and there's the have-nots. And until we start to narrow the wealth inequality, and until we can make things more affordable, particularly for younger people, my sense is, Tony, that we're going to be in this period of instability, of incredible pendulum swings for a while, because it's going to take a while before people feel like the economy's fair to all of us and that we can afford to raise a family on a middle class wage. Until that happens, I think people are going to be swinging back and forth between Bernie Sanders or Mamdani or Donald Trump or somebody who speaks about economic populism.
And that might be true, but and I'll give you why Zoran is popular in New York.
Let me say quickly, even when you talk what you're talking about, Tony, what David's saying doesn't necessarily discredit.
Right.
There's a realignment. If you look in history, realignments often take 20, 30 years. So Strom Thurmond left the Democratic Party, being the racist bastard that he was, and a rapist, by the way, in 1964. Reagan comes along and starts his campaign in 1980 in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where the 3 civil rights workers were slain. I mean, that wasn't a process. I mean, I think John Tower left the Republican Party in 1956, 1958, the senator from Texas, who eventually was going to try to become defense secretary. But believe it or not, he drank a lot, and that stopped you back then, because that's how we worked back then, as opposed to now. Some things were better. My point being, that was a 30, 40 year, the Southern strategy realignment, 30, 40 year thing. So what you're both saying can be true here.
30 or 40, right? 30 or 40. So if we look back at when this started and when America really started to change our thinking, if I'm right, which I don't know if I am or not, I'm just making a theory here that 9/11 was the events that really started this process, right? That put it in the hyperdrive. We have internet now, we have AI. It's going to advance very rapidly. Back then, information moved much slower than it moves now. And you could say
about as quickly as Strom Thurmond did in 1960.
Right.
I'm just sorry, go ahead.
And you could say that doesn't have anything to do with it, but I think it has everything to do with it. And I believe that we are in the throes of those pendulum swings. We've seen several of them so far. We went from Obama to Trump, from Trump to Biden, from Biden back to Trump, and almost every single one of those races was built on economic populism or economic plight of the masses. And I think that's what Zoran Mamdani's talking about. I think that's what Trump talked about. He's like, oh, I said the word groceries. It's an old term. Like he's never been in a grocery store, but he knew that was the trigger point, right? And if he knew that was the trigger point, why would he come in and just shit on the people who couldn't afford groceries? Because he doesn't really care, right? And he doesn't care to care. And the reason why is because why does he need to care? He's one dude. He's in power. He's in charge of everything. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He's got a crypto scam for his crypto scams.
Marjorie Taylor Greene cares. Those Congress people care. Those U.S. senators care. Those candidates care. The reason why they care is because they have to get elected to represent us. That is the difference. The president of the United States is not a representative. That's all a bunch of bullshit. They do not represent us. They are our servant to administer the laws that the legislator passes. That's all they are. They're to write the checks, and if Congress says we go to war, then they're the commander in chief. That's it, period. That's Article 2. Now, the flirtation that the Democratic Party and liberals still have with the executive power, because I get the sense that most people are like, well, you know what? Executive power is great because we can come in and we can do whatever we want when they're done. But I don't think that's the answer that America wants. Because here's what I think America wants more than anything. They want to work hard, okay? They want the opportunity to earn a living and earn some goddamn dignity. But the basic thing is they don't want to be told what to do, what to think, or who to be. And they definitely do not want the government on their backs telling them that. And that's like our American charge, right? Like that's the whole reason why we are here in the first place. And I think it's really telling that we had a Tea Party to kick off the American Revolution. And just the other day, there was 5 Republican senators, 5, that voted to undo Trump's tariffs in Brazil for one reason and one reason only: coffee. That is why. Because I think they understand that coffee prices matter. Because
David was talking about that at the beginning of the show. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing many of us share. Go ahead, David.
Well, Tony, let's take it a step further. I mean, you're arguing, and I think you make some really interesting points and valid points. And this idea that instead of a powerful executive, Democrats should go back to a more powerful legislative oversight.
Correct.
On the issue Cliff and I were talking about at the top of the show, for example, this ballroom, the White House ballroom. I mean, there are people out there, they're the Joe Walshes and others who say if a Democrat comes in, Democrat wins in 2028, we should just wreck this ballroom. Just do it.
And I hear Joe, but the thing is that if we're going to complain in this moment about him wasting that much money or whatever the money is and all this stuff to build this thing, and once it's built, then we're going to go spend money to tear it down and rebuild something else. I mean, what do we do? What if we
don't spend money though? What if I just know a guy? You know what I mean? And the fence is left unlocked, the gates, and it just happens to fall over overnight.
Tony, if I hear you correctly, you're talking about that we should go back to going through proper channels, the proper process.
You know what?
And there is a process for deciding whether a building should be destroyed or not. It's not Cliff and I grabbing hammers and beating it apart.
Right. Which would be fun, but yeah.
They should go through we the people. That's what they should do. It should be our consent. Now in our republic, which it is a constitutional democratic republic, we the people don't get the vote on every single issue. That's why democracy doesn't go fast, it goes slow, because we have representation there, and we allow them 2 years in Congress and 6 years in the Senate to represent us. And if they don't do a good enough job,
well,
God damn it,
Can I just say quickly while you're saying this, that actually to me, when I think of, and I'm throwing everything out there at this point for me to make this a more make power more diffuse. I absolutely believe in the way there are in so many states. I do. I think we should. Again, these are constitutional changes, so they're not going to happen overnight. They may not happen for 30 years. I think there should be national referenda where people can directly vote on certain things, where if our government is so fucking corrupt that they won't do what 90% of us want, that we have an opportunity to actually vote on it ourselves. That would be one way in the long term. And I know that people are like, that's crazy. Well, you know what? There are a lot of things that are crazy until you expand the Overton window, and they're not so crazy anymore. There's a point where anybody pushing for women having the right to vote or for equality of the races or anything, that's crazy talk. How could you say that? And there are points where those of us who thought half the things Trump is doing right now could never happen. Well, keep an open mind towards. I think that would be one way to add some more democracy to what we have. Go ahead.
Well, and democratizing institutions, I don't believe is a bad thing. And I mean, in our republic, as we look towards representation that looks like us, as opposed to someone who is born and bred to be the United States Senator, I think is important. Agree or disagree with people like Graham Plattner or Tallarico or Morrow. They are working class, and I think the one thing people miss, especially in the Plattner race with all the stuff that's happening, is that Mainers feel like he's a Mainer. And they feel like he's going to go and he's going to represent Maine, right? At this point. Now, the race may change. Something may change. Some more information may come out. There may be, I don't know, another candidate enters this race. We're so
there's plenty of time. I think March or something. There's a lot of time till.
Right. But this guy, they led with the Nazi tattoo stuff. And the very next day, there were 700 people in his town hall in a town of like 2,300. Now, that doesn't mean that there's a lot of support for Plattner, I don't think. But there's this feeling, this sense that, hey, I want to have a voice. And the way that we change this is through that representative voice, not through we're going to vote in a Democratic president and they're going to be the dictator of us, right? They're going to be our king. Because that's the one thing that I think we're missing is no kings means fuck the executive, fuck the one person who's going to tell us what to do. And government by decree, that's not no kings. That is kingdom and kingdomhood. And I think we should walk away from that. And we should walk away from this idea that we can't more localize government. And we can localize federal government through the Congress. I mean, what is our congressperson than our local representative in Congress? And I think if the American people start to realize that, hey, it is more important who my congressperson is, how they vote, and how I feel about them and how they represent me than who the hell the president is. I think our problems are going to start to fade that we see that we have, like Citizens United. I mean, what better way to get rid of Citizens United than all of us band up and vote for representatives? They're going to go get rid of that damn thing, right? Who are going to codify bodily autonomy in the Constitution? I think everyone's like, oh, there's no way a constitutional amendment will be done. Yeah, if we keep voting in the same people that we vote in, it's never going to get done.
Right. It's been done before. It can be done again. It's sort of like the people are like, I can't stand that. This is whenever I fight with the people who are like, we need an amendment to change the Second Amendment. And I was like, actually, we really don't. We just need a court not filled with 5 Opus Dei assholes who interpret something that says a well-regulated militia and is based on, if you understand any of the history of that time, when they literally kept guns in armories, and was based on the federal government can't come in and confiscate guns from a state because we didn't have a standing army and states had to have the right to protect themselves. In fact, it didn't even say anything about states not having the rights. So if Ohio wanted to confiscate every gun from Ohioans, they could. But these guys, and I'm not saying I agree with that, which I don't, but my point to you is we've so bastardized what that amendment meant, and people need to have imagination because look at what these guys have done. This country was almost founded on the worry about corporate money and things and big money in politics, and they passed Citizens United. Just look at that and assume that that's the same thing they've done to guns, voting rights, abortion rights, labor rights, and everything else. They don't represent any of our founding principles. There are a couple of 5 ridiculous, rich, corrupt, right-wing religious assholes, 6 really. And if we can get back to a point where there's a fair representation there, again, that's one of those institutions that needs to be massively, massively reformed. I'm saying everything.
And you know,
It's on the table.
when I hear Pete Buttigieg, in my mind, is the most sort of deft in terms of talking about policy and understanding all this different stuff. The first thing he says when you ask him about how we reclaim this country is we have to get rid of the money in politics. We have to change this. You can't do any of this other stuff until you somehow figure out how to get rid of Citizens United. Once you do that, then everything can start to fall in place.
Do you know? I think how we undermine the money and the power is giving less executive authority because it consolidates where those people can go to get that power. I mean, we're seeing it in real time with Trump. I mean, what is Trump other than a whore? He's always been a whore. He's always been a whore to money and power because he wants to look like he has money and he wants to feel like he has power. It's what weak men do. And I think in this moment, if we understand that that's what our problem is, because Trump is a problem, but the problem is that we have too much executive authority. There's way too much flirting with us having a king in the first place. And we've done this since FDR. You know, we've
Well, it's grown over time, right? The Articles of the Confederacy originally did not even have an executive. That's how scared we were of executive power. But I would say to alleviate the concerns of folks, who've needed that executive power to get civil rights because of the recalcitrant, states and these kinds of things, we also need to democratize the hell out of Congress. And what that means is, a classic example of that is, right now, there's at least, I could count 8 states that may have more cows than people, but get 2 senators each, and we know they're all going to be Republicans. Well, we need to think bigger. This is where I talk about this stuff all the time. Everybody's like D.C. and Puerto Rico if they want to. Well, we're not in manifest destiny times anymore, thankfully. I don't think we are. I hope we haven't gone back. Maybe we have. What about the Northern Marianas? What about the U.S. Virgin Islands? What about Guam? If Wyoming can have 2 senators with all its fucking cows, no offense to anybody from Wyoming, it's a beautiful state. I'm sorry, Guam can too. And
don't get me started on D.C. D.C. has a larger population than 2 states. It's more money in tax revenue than like 15 states. It's got more college graduates than 20. I mean, you go on and on and on.
And now you're talking about instead of adding just 2 from D.C., I'm talking about adding 10.
Right.
And you could find a lot, that would, in a lot of ways, change the makeup of that Senate. That is one way. But another one is that I've railed about forever is that Mitch McConnell took the filibuster and abused it to the point where people got so frustrated with government they were willing to go over to fascists and go to extremes because he blocked everything and made everything have to take 60 votes. The filibuster does not exist in the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution lays out the Senate as a majority body. Majority leaders didn't exist. It was the presiding officer who decided, as in the vice president. We could have gotten rid of it, and we didn't because we wanted to play nice and all that. Well, if you get rid of the what the filibuster, of course, was used for before McConnell did that? Civil rights legislation. They always use it to block civil rights. So the whole point is, if you can get rid of that, so that we add more senators from places that are more representative, and they can't use a filibuster that we've found sometimes has represented 17% of our population, because you get South Dakota and North Dakota and Oklahoma and all these places together blocking what most of us want. Then you don't need the executive power. Then you will get the civil rights community more on the side of saying Congress can do these things.
And by the way, a shout out, let me real quick, a shout out to our friend Ellie Leonard, who just had one of the classic lines in the chat. And this is why I encourage everybody to join the chat and write in your comments. When you were talking about Mitch McConnell and the filibuster, then she wrote, and then he fell over.
And I find it funny, and I'm not going to apologize.
And Ellie also pointed out just a minute ago that, Donald Trump's hands are always dirty. And it, reminds me.
Is that the purple crap or is that the other stuff?
I just saw something about how, like, Donald Trump's grandchildren for Halloween, they're dressing up literally as money, as cash. And I don't know whether that was just the onion but the fact that any parent would, that's where we've come. That's where.
But he's got enough dementia, though, that if he sees them, he may think they're actually cash, and then he may just trade them away to somebody, probably hand them over to Putin. So, it's worth, in any case. Go ahead.
Tony, where can everybody find you?
I'll make one last point, and then
All
I'll
right.
tell you where you can find me. One last point is that Cliff, his last rant was about democratizing Article 1, which that's my entire point with the realignment, is that's where this sentiment is going. People are going to walk away from executive power, and it's not going to happen right away. We're not all going to choose at the same time. And it's not something you can do. It's just discussions that you can have and should have. And I think that's what the realignment is I'm not saying this is something that we have to do or I'm trying to sell it. I'm saying this is what is happening and we are in the throes of it. And it's going to take a long time for it to show its face. And it's going to take a long time. And when we get there, we'll know that it happened. But until then, we'll just live in the present. And if you live in the present, you probably should get yourself a constitution. You can go to yourpocketconstitution.com. That's yourpocketconstitution.com. And you can download a free copy of the Constitution. That's probably the most important thing you can do. And you can read right now if you care about our country and you care about our democracy, whether you want executive authority to be the supremacy or you want Article 1, the power of the people, to be the supremacy. Go get.
What if I just want the aliens from Independence Day to come down? Because I feel like we've got a better chance with those fuckers than we do with anything going on here.
I mean, it is possible that they would build a better East Wing than Donald Trump. I'm not really sure on that, but it probably would be pretty spectacular. So.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, they had some really good architectural ideas from what I remember.
Sure, right. Anyways, I appreciate you guys having me on. And you can also find me at theTonyMichaels.com, YouTube, Facebook. I'm here on Substack with the Kaufman Chronicles. So you guys can find us everywhere. Just Google Tony Michaels or The Tony Michaels and you'll find me.
Tony, it is always great talking with you
and
great conversation. We appreciate you, everything that you're doing. And I just hope that we all last long enough for this realignment to take place. I just saw this movie, House of Dynamite, which is on Netflix, and it's all about a nuclear attack.
Oh, that's the one with, what's her name? Is it good? Because she's from Mission Impossible. She was in Mission Impossible.
It will blow you away. It is a remarkable movie, but it also reminds us how tenuous we all are with all the nuclear weapons that are out there. So anyway,
because I'm still sort of traumatized from the day after, like every Gen Xer. Like everybody's like, "Hey, you 13-year-old, sit down and watch this about a nuclear attack in the United States and everything blowing up."
Remember the horse is like on the ground and it's like dead.
Yes, and I swear to God, I'm not kidding you. I grew up in New York City, and New York City is known for having some loud noises here and there. I swear to you, like a truck would backfire, and I'd be looking up at the sky and be like, "See if there are nuclear missiles." I mean, I was freaked the fuck out for like years after that, those sons of bitches. So in any case, I'm going to see that movie now. Well, that's tonight, I think, if I ever get off of Substack or whatever. Tony Michaels, he has a show. He makes videos. He's on Substack. If you don't go follow him in every goddamn place that exists, I mean, that's your mistake. And you're gonna have to answer to some deity someday for why you didn't do that. So you decide.
So go look at my video on the realignment. It's an explanation on it. I'm going to be writing more articles. I'm going to be talking about it anywhere I can because I think it's the thing that's happening. And I'm not saying it's the fix. I think it's the thing that is going to put us in a better position naturally.
Right. I agree. I'll say quickly, blueamp.co. That's where you can find me and David and the crew. As you know, we have a sound check fund. We support creators. If you get a paid subscription, funds go to them. And David and I are adding, we're adding all sorts of extra stuff. You're just going to love it all. So please go over there, think about subscribing at blueamp.co. You guys are awesome. I think we are done with this one. So,
good stuff.
Yes, the sun sets slowly in the west, I guess, my friends. We bid you a fond farewell. Now I have to end it.